Have you ever had that moment when you finally realize your own family sees you as nothing more than free labor? That's what happened to me during my first year of college, and honestly, it was a long time coming. Where are you watching from today? Comment down below. I still remember the day I got my acceptance letter. My parents barely looked up from their phones. Mom just said, "That's nice, but who's gonna watch the kids while you're at class?" No congratulations. No pride. Just immediate concern about their childcare arrangements falling apart. I'd been raising my younger siblings since I was 12. 3 of them, ages 4, 6, and 8. And somehow I'd become their second mother without ever signing up for the job. Don't get me wrong, I love those kids. But I was 19, trying to balance a full course load in my first year of college while working part-time at a coffee shop just to afford my textbooks. Every single day was exhausting. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. to help get the little ones ready for school, rush to my morning classes, work an afternoon shift, then race home to take over childcare duties while my parents went out, or just relaxed in their bedroom. Homework? That was a midnight to 2 a.m. activity for me. Emma, we need you to pick up Jamie from soccer. Emma, Lily spilled juice all over her bed. Can you handle it? Emma, we're going out tonight. The kids need dinner. It was always Emma, 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 until they wanted to have fun without me. I'll never forget coming home after a brutal midterm to find my parents excitedly packing suitcases. They were laughing, making plans, checking flight details on their phones. What's going on? I asked, dropping my backpack by the door. Mom barely glanced up. We're visiting Aunt Diane in Florida this weekend. The tickets were on sale, and we haven't seen her in ages. I waited for her to mention my ticket. The family vacation we'd been talking about for months. The one where I'd finally get to see the ocean for the first time. Dad must have noticed my expression because he cleared his throat and said, "Oh, Emma, we need you to stay with the kids. It's just going to be us adults this time." But we've been planning this family trip for months, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I've already arranged to get those days off work. Mom shrugged. Plans change. The kids are too young for a long flight anyway. They'll be more comfortable at home with you. That's when I remembered. I can't this weekend. I have my biology final on Saturday morning. It's 30% of my grade. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Mom stopped folding clothes and Dad's smile disappeared. Can't you reschedule it? Mom asked, her voice taking on that tone, the one that said I was being difficult on purpose. No, I can't reschedule a final exam, I said. I've been studying for weeks. Professor Clark doesn't offer makeups unless it's a medical emergency. Dad crossed his arms. Emma, this is important to your mother. Family comes first. My education is important too, I said, feeling a strange new courage rising in my chest. I'm paying for these classes myself. If I miss this exam, I'll fail the course. There's always summer school, Mom said dismissively. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. With what money? I'm already working 25 hours a week just to afford this semester. Well, what are we supposed to do? Mom snapped. Cancel our trip because you have a test? You could take the kids with you, I suggested. Or hire a babysitter, like normal parents do. The moment those words left my mouth, I knew I'd crossed a line. My parents stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Normal parents? Dad's voice was dangerously quiet. Is that what you think of us? After everything we've done for you? What exactly have you done for me lately? The words came tumbling out before I could stop them. I cook, I clean, I watch the kids. I'm basically raising your children for you while trying to build my own future. Mom's face turned red. If you won't help this family, you don't deserve to be part of it. That's not fair, I said, tears stinging my eyes. I've helped for years. I'm just asking for one weekend to focus on my exam. One weekend? Dad laughed bitterly. It's always something with you lately. Ever since you started college, you've been selfish and ungrateful. Selfish? For wanting an education? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom looked at me with cold eyes I didn't recognize. If you can't do this one thing for us, then maybe you should find somewhere else to live. I thought she was bluffing. I really did. Fine, I said. If that's how you feel, maybe I should. You have until tomorrow night to pack your things, Dad said, and turned away from me. That night, I barely slept. I kept waiting for one of them to knock on my door, to apologize, to say they didn't mean it. They never did. The next day, I went to class in a daze, still believing they wouldn't actually kick out their own daughter over babysitting. When I got home, my little sister Lily ran to me crying. Emma, why are your things in boxes? Are you going away? I found my bedroom half packed up. Mom was methodically emptying my dresser drawers into cardboard boxes scavenged from the recycling bin. Mom, can we talk about this? I pleaded. She wouldn't even look at me. There's nothing to discuss. You made your choice. I spent that evening hugging my siblings, trying to explain that I wasn't abandoning them, just moving out earlier than planned. They didn't understand. How could they? I called every friend I could think of, finally finding one whose parents said I could crash on their couch for a few days. When I finished loading my few boxes into my beat-up car, I went back for one last goodbye. The door wouldn't open. My key didn't work. I stood there in shock, staring at the new locks my parents had installed while I was at school that day. Through the window, I could see my youngest brother waving sadly at me, not understanding what was happening. I texted my dad, "Did you change the locks?" His reply came a minute later. "When you're ready to apologize and be part of this family again, let us know." That was it. After 19 years of being their on-demand childcare, after sacrificing my social life, my sleep, and nearly my education for their convenience, I was locked out of my own home because I chose to take an exam instead of babysitting. I sat in my car and cried until I couldn't breathe. Then I wiped my face, started the engine, and drove away from the only home I'd ever known. I didn't know it then, but that was the day I finally started living for myself. That first night away from home was the longest of my life. I slept on my friend Tasha's couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering how my own parents could just throw me away. The next morning, I woke up determined to take my biology final. If I was losing my family over this exam, I was damn well going to ace it. I showed up early, dark circles under my eyes, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. Professor Clark must have noticed something was off because she asked me to stay after class. "Emma, is everything all right? You don't seem like yourself today." I tried to keep it together, I really did, but something about her genuine concern broke the dam. Before I knew it, I was sobbing in her office, telling her everything: the years of unpaid childcare, the ultimatum, the locked doors. "You took this exam while homeless?" she asked, visibly shocked. "Emma, I don't even have words. Let me make some calls." Professor Clark became my first real lifeline. She walked me directly to campus housing services and advocated for me with an intensity that left me speechless. By that afternoon, I had an emergency student housing grant and a spot in the dormitory that would open up the following week. In the meantime, I bounced between Tasha's couch and another classmate's spare room. My parents texted exactly once during those first chaotic days. "Are you ready to apologize yet?" I stared at those 6 words for hours. Apologize for what? For having an exam? For wanting a future? For finally standing up for myself after years of being treated like the family's unpaid help? I never responded. The dorm room was tiny, with institutional beige walls and a bed that squeaked with every movement, but it was mine. No one could lock me out. No one could demand I sacrifice my sleep, my studies, or my sanity for their convenience. For the first time in years, I could focus on just being a student. Professor Clark didn't stop at housing. She recommended me for a position in the campus library, quiet, air-conditioned, with flexible hours that worked around my class schedule. The pay wasn't much, but combined with my coffee shop job, it was enough to cover my basic expenses and start a small emergency fund. Your workspace can be a sanctuary, my new boss at the library told me. Everyone deserves at least one place where they feel completely safe. Safe. It had been so long since I'd felt that. Months passed. I missed my siblings desperately. My parents controlled all contact with them, allowing only occasional supervised phone calls where they'd hover in the background, monitoring every word. "Do you hate us now, Emma?" my little brother asked during one of these calls. "Nobody," I said, fighting back tears. "I could never hate you. I just needed to live in a different house for a while." "When are you coming home?" my sister would ask, and I never knew how to answer. The truth was, I wasn't sure I had a home anymore. My parents made it clear I was welcome back only if I recognized my responsibilities to the family, their code for returning to my role as the default childcare provider. But something unexpected was happening. Without the constant demands of my parents' household, I was thriving academically. My grades went from barely maintaining B's to solid A's. Professors knew my name. I started making real friends, not just acquaintances I'd wave to between babysitting shifts, but people who actually knew me. Tasha's family practically adopted me. They insisted I join them for Sunday dinners and holiday celebrations. Her mom hugged me like she meant it and never asked for anything in return. The first time I spent Thanksgiving with them, I excused myself to the bathroom and cried for 10 minutes straight. I hadn't realized family could feel like that. Warm, supportive, no strings attached. "You're not alone anymore," Tasha told me. "You've got us now." My chosen family expanded. There was Mrs. Rodriguez from the library who brought me homemade tamales and fussed over whether I was eating enough. There was Dr. Kim from the biology department who became my mentor and pushed me to apply for research opportunities I never would have considered. There was my dorm mate Zoe, who taught me the fine art of setting boundaries and saying no without feeling guilty. 1 year passed, then 2. My parents' occasional texts became even more infrequent. "The kids miss you," or "family dinner Sunday if you're ready to be reasonable." Never an acknowledgement of what they'd done. Never an apology. Meanwhile, I was building something they couldn't take away from me. I landed a prestigious summer research internship that paid better than both my part-time jobs combined. I earned scholarships that covered most of my tuition. I started presenting at undergraduate conferences where business cards were exchanged and professional connections formed. The internship turned into a job offer for after graduation. Real money, benefits, a future I could actually see clearly for the first time. "We were impressed by your resilience," my future boss told me during the interview. "That's not something you can teach." Resilience. I'd never thought of myself that way before, but she was right. I'd been knocked down about as hard as a person can be, abandoned by the very people who were supposed to protect me. And yet here I was, not just surviving, but building something meaningful. 2.5 years after being locked out of my childhood home, I signed the lease on my own apartment. It was small but sunny, with a spare bedroom I could use as a home office. I bought a real couch, not a futon. I hung artwork on the walls. I filled the refrigerator with actual groceries instead of just ramen and coffee. I was making it, really making it. And then my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in nearly a year. I stared at my phone, my mother's name flashing on the screen. For a moment, I considered not answering. What could she possibly want after nearly a year of silence? The last time we'd spoken was a terse Christmas call where she'd reminded me that the door was always open if I was ready to be part of the family again. Her definition of family, of course. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello? Emma. My mother's voice sounded strange, strained and quavering. Emma, I need your help. Not, how are you? Not, I've missed you. Not, I'm sorry for kicking you out and changing the locks. Just straight to what she needed from me. Classic. What's wrong? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. It's your father. For the first time in my life, I heard my mother cry. There was an accident at the construction site. A steel beam. They said it could have killed him. My stomach dropped. Despite everything, he was still my dad. Is he okay? No, Emma, he's not okay. He's had 2 surgeries already. His back, his legs. They don't know if he'll walk normally again. He can't work. He won't be able to work for months, maybe longer. I sank onto my couch, trying to process this. I'm sorry to hear that. Which hospital is he in? Memorial. But Emma, that's not why I'm calling. We're in trouble. Of course there was more. There was always more. What kind of trouble? Your father was the only one working, you know that. The medical bills are piling up even with insurance. The mortgage is 3 months behind. The bank is threatening foreclosure. I've been trying to find work, but with 3 kids and your father needing constant care? I closed my eyes, seeing exactly where this was going. Emma, we need you to come home. The kids need you. I need you. We could lose the house. There it was. After kicking me out, changing the locks, and barely acknowledging my existence for nearly 3 years, they needed me again. Not as a daughter they missed, but as a solution to their problems. What exactly are you asking me to do? I wanted her to say it clearly. Move back home. Help with the kids so I can work. Maybe contribute to the mortgage until your father gets back on his feet. She paused. I know you've got that good job now. So they'd been keeping tabs on me. Interesting. How do you know about my job? Aunt Linda mentioned it. Said you posted about it online. Of course, the family grapevine never missed an opportunity to report back. I'd blocked my parents on social media, but not my extended family. An oversight I'd have to correct. I have an apartment, Mom. A lease. A life I've built without any help from you or Dad. You can't seriously expect me to drop everything and move back home like the last 3 years never happened. Don't you care about your family at all? She demanded, her voice hardening into the familiar tone I remembered all too well. We could end up homeless, Emma. Your little brothers and sister could be sleeping in our car. Is that what you want? The emotional manipulation was so blatant it was almost comical. 3 years ago, it would have worked. I would have crumbled under the weight of guilt, packed my bags, and rushed home to rescue them. Not anymore. That's not fair, I said calmly. And it's not going to work. I do care about the kids, but you and Dad kicked me out, remember? You changed the locks while I was at school. You told me I wasn't part of the family unless I sacrificed my education to be your unpaid babysitter. That was your father's idea, not mine, she said quickly. I wanted to let you back, but he was so angry. Revisionist history at its finest. Mom, stop. I was there. You both made that decision. Neither of you ever apologized or even acknowledged what you did. Is that what this is about? You want an apology? Fine. I'm sorry. Now will you help us? I almost laughed at how empty those words were. Sorry with conditions attached isn't sorry at all. This isn't about an apology anymore. This is about respect. You and Dad never respected me as a person with my own life and goals. You treated me like free labor. We gave you everything, she snapped. A roof over your head, food, clothes. The bare minimum parents are legally required to provide, I interrupted. And in exchange, I became a third parent to your children. I'm not doing that again. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, defeated. Please, Emma. I don't know what else to do. The kids ask about you all the time. Lily cries for you when she has nightmares. Jamie keeps your picture by his bed. That hit me hard. I miss those kids more than anything. They were innocent in all this. I'll think about how I can help, I said finally. But I'm not moving back home. That's non-negotiable. We need you here, Emma. The kids need stability, routine. They need someone they trust while I'm at work. The irony was almost too much. When I needed stability and support during college, they'd thrown me out. Now that they needed the same from me, they expected immediate compliance. I'll call you back tomorrow, I said. I need time to think. After hanging up, I sat in my quiet apartment, looking around at the life I'd built piece by piece. The bookshelves I'd assembled myself, the framed diploma on the wall, the degree I'd earned while homeless and heartbroken, the business cards from networking events pinned to my corkboard, the plant collection I'd nurtured from tiny cuttings to thriving greenery. All of it represented my independence, my resilience, my refusal to be defined by my parents' rejection. Could I really risk all that to rescue the very people who'd abandoned me? But then I thought of my siblings, their sweet faces, their confusion when I'd left. They hadn't chosen any of this. I picked up my phone and called the one person who always gave me straight advice. Tasha, I need to talk. My family's in trouble and they want me to bail them out. You don't owe them anything, Tasha said, handing me a mug of tea. We were sitting in her apartment, the same place I'd crashed after being kicked out 3 years ago. Not after what they did. I know, I said, warming my hands on the mug. But it's not about them. It's about Jamie, Lily, and Max. They didn't do anything wrong. So what are you thinking? I took a deep breath. I'm thinking about helping, but on my terms. Not theirs. The next morning, I called my mother back. I've made a decision, I said before she could speak. I'll help, but I have conditions. Conditions? Her voice immediately sharpened. Emma, we're about to lose our home. Your father can barely move. This isn't the time for... It's exactly the time, I interrupted. I'm willing to help financially for 3 months. That should give you time to find work and figure out a long-term solution. I'll pay for a part-time nanny so you don't have to worry about childcare while you're working. A nanny? We don't need some stranger watching our children when you could... I'm not moving back home, I said firmly. I have a career I've worked incredibly hard for. I'm not putting my life on hold again. This is your family we're talking about, she exploded. Not some job. My job is my future, I replied calmly. And these are my terms. 3 months of financial support and a professional childcare provider. Take it or leave it. There was a long silence. I could practically hear her weighing her options. Pride versus practicality. Your father won't like this, she finally said. That's between you and him. Let me know what you decide. It took them 2 days to call back. 2 days of me second-guessing myself, wondering if I was being too harsh, too unforgiving. But Tasha's words kept echoing in my head. Helping doesn't mean sacrificing yourself. When my phone rang again, it was my father's name on the screen. I hadn't heard his voice in 3 years. Emma, he said, and he sounded older, weaker than I remembered. Your mother told me what you're offering. And? My heart was pounding. And I don't understand why you can't just come home. We're your family. You stopped being my family the day you changed the locks, I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. You made it clear I was only valuable as free childcare. That's not true, he protested, but there was no conviction in his voice. It is true. And now you're in trouble, and suddenly you want me back. Not because you miss me or love me, but because you need something from me. Of course we love you, he said, but it sounded hollow, rehearsed. Then why did you kick me out? Why did you never call to check if I was okay? Why did you never apologize? Silence stretched between us. Then, unexpectedly, his voice broke. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. I don't know how to say I was wrong. It was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. Just say it, Dad. Just once. Say you were wrong. He took a shaky breath. I was wrong, Emma. We were wrong. We should never have put so much on you. We should never have made you choose. It wasn't a full apology, but it was a start. More than I'd expected, honestly. Thank you for saying that, I said softly. Your mother and I have talked. We'll accept your help. On your terms. The next few weeks were a careful dance of boundaries and reconciliation. I hired a highly recommended part-time nanny through an agency. I set up automatic transfers for part of the mortgage payment. I visited my father in the hospital, bringing small gifts for the kids. It was awkward and tense at first. My mother hovered anxiously whenever I spoke with my siblings, as if afraid I'd say something to turn them against her. My father alternated between gruff gratitude and flashes of his old controlling self. You don't have to pay for everything, he told me during one visit. I could come home sooner, supervise the kids while your mother works. The doctor said you need at least 6 weeks of recovery, I reminded him. This is temporary, Dad. Let yourself heal. Slowly, very slowly, something shifted. Maybe it was seeing me as an adult with resources and boundaries. Maybe it was simple necessity. But my parents began to treat me differently, with a caution that bordered on respect. One evening, after helping my siblings with homework, my mother walked me to my car. I never wanted this for us, she said abruptly. This distance. Neither did I admitted. But it happened, and we can't pretend it didn't. No, we can't. She hesitated, then added, I'm sorry, Emma. Really sorry. For everything. It wasn't perfect. It didn't erase the years of exploitation or the trauma of being thrown out. But it was sincere, and it was a beginning. As the weeks passed, we established a new normal. I visited regularly but maintained my separate life. I formed relationships with my siblings based on genuine connection, not forced caregiving. When the 3-month deadline approached, my parents had stabilized enough to take over completely. You saved us, my mother told me during our last financial planning session. I don't know what we would have done without you. You would have figured something out, I said. That's what adults do. She nodded, accepting the gentle rebuke. We'll pay you back, every penny. I don't care about the money, I told her honestly. I care about being treated like a daughter, not a resource. On my way out, my father called me into his room. He was sitting up in bed, looking both diminished and somehow more human than I'd ever seen him. I've been thinking a lot, he said, about how we treated you. It wasn't right. No, it wasn't. I want to do better, he said simply. I don't expect you to forgive and forget, but I want to be someone you can respect someday. I studied his face, looking for the manipulation, the hidden agenda. I didn't see it. That would be nice, I said, for all of us. As I drove home to my apartment, to my job, to the life I'd built from scratch, I realized something powerful. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do, for yourself and others, is refuse to enable harmful patterns. By setting firm boundaries instead of giving in, I hadn't just protected myself. I'd created the only chance we had for building something healthier. The family that had discarded me was finally being forced to see me as I truly was. not their safety net, but a person deserving of respect and love on my own terms.